Ahir, Guardian of Malor, Chapter 17, Returning Home. The sword dropped from Milton's hands with a loud clang upon the ground, and he started to wipe his hands off against his shirt. I killed someone. I can't believe I actually ended someone's life. Ahir got up off of the ground and patted Milton on the back. It's okay, Milton. It had to be done. He would have killed all of us, and who knows how many others if you hadn't. Milton glared at Ahir. Look at the foul creature you turned into when you came through the portal. I'll bet it's because of all those EJBorchardt that you killed. Now I'm going to look like that on the inside, too. Milton took a step away from Ahir. I have a lot to make up for, that I don't know if I will ever be able to fully repent for what I've done. Ahir started glowing, and the light got brighter and brighter until it hurt Milton's eyes to look at. The light faded away, and instead of a black mist creature, another EJBorchardt stood before Milton. Milton grunted in disgust. That's not fair. How is it that you and Trixie were turned into EJBorchardt and I got stuck as a giant cat? A smirk appeared on Ahir's face, but his eyes quickly widened in panic. Trixie! I hope that she's all right. Ahir and Milton turned to rush to Trixie's side, but saw that she was surrounded by 3 EJBorchardt that had been helping Lang Khan break the seal on the sword. One of the EJBorchardt held his hand up and started out,
You killed Master Lang Khan. You will pay for this, starting with the girl.
He stared intently at his hand, and confusion filled his face.
Why isn't it working? Why isn't there any fire?
Milton shook his head and shot the EJBorchardt with an arrow before firing his partner into the ground at the base of the throne. The EJBorchardt was pulled across the ground until it hit the throne and struggled to move away. I guess getting rid of Lang Khan got rid of magic, but it doesn't seem like it helped the EJBorchardt to return to their senses. What are we going to do with them? Ahir shrugged. I guess the only thing we can do is to round them up and take them back to the palace for the king to decide what to do. Now that Darduel and Lang Khan are dead, I wonder who is next in line for the throne. Barbo's voice answered, No one. The royal line that has ruled over our people since civilization was founded 20,000 years ago has been broken, and my people are left without a leader. The last of the EJBorchardt that had been threatening Trixie was pinned to the throne, and Ahir and Milton rushed over to Barbo, who was looking better already. Ahir smiled down at Barbo. That's a problem to figure out later. I'm glad that you are looking better. Barbo snorted. You know the EJBorchardt can't die except by the sword, and the damage that can be done to us is superficial and quickly healed. That doesn't mean that Miss Ameliason shouldn't be checked on, or that Syllabo would appreciate being trapped under that door. Ahir, you tend to Trixie while Milton and I free Syllabo. Ahir rushed over to Trixie's side and grimaced. She had bruises on her arms that looked like invisible hands that grabbed her, and he assumed that her back must be one massive bruise. He gently caressed her cheek, and her eyes fluttered open. A smile filled her face, and she asked,
Did we win?
Ahir returned her smile. Yeah, we were able to defeat Lang Khan. Milton saved me at the last second with a crazy bank shot off of your shield. How do you feel? Trixie tried to move, and her face contorted in pain. She chuckled weakly.
I feel like I was hit by a truck, but I'll survive. Help me to my feet?
Ahir grabbed Trixie's arm and slowly helped her up to her feet. She groaned and grimaced during the whole process, but she smiled at Ahir once she was standing up. She saw the 3 EJBorchardt pinned to the throne and frowned.
Why are they stuck to the throne like that? Killing Lang Khan didn't fix them?
Ahir shook his head. No, they're still completely devoted to Lang Khan, but magic seems to be gone. At least they couldn't summon any earlier before Milton pinned them to the throne. We haven't figured out what to do with them yet. Ahir and Trixie made their way over to where Milton and Barbo were helping Syllabo crawl out from under the door. Syllabo dusted himself off his mouth. I'm glad to see that you all made it out of that fight alive. I thought I heard the king's voice. Is he still here? Barbo looked down at the ground and shuffled his feet. No, I'm afraid he isn't. Lang Khan was able to kill him. Syllabo's eyes got a faraway look to them, and he dropped down to his knees. No, that can't be. Who will lead us if the royal family is gone? Ahir sighed. I'm sorry for the loss of your ruler, but I'm sure that you'll be able to find a leader to replace him later. We still have all the EJBorchardt that are loyal to Lang Khan to deal with first. Does anyone have any ideas what to do with them? Milton held up his bow. They shouldn't be able to break free of the pull of my EJBorchardt if magic is truly gone. I could just bundle them up with this. Trixie tilted her head.
If magic is gone, why is your bow still working?
Barbo shrugged. Most of Law's Crit's artifacts had amazing abilities before Lang Khan discovered magic. It is something about the way he makes them that made them special. Your bow should be able to round them all up, but what do we do with them after that? A wall hanging was pulled aside and revealed the 3 Arius Avum that had been fighting alongside Syllabo and Milton outside of the throne room, and one of them held up a chain.
We could bind them with this. They shouldn't give us any trouble while we transport them then.
Milton glared at the Arius Avum. Have you been hiding behind that tapestry this entire time? We could have used your help when we were fighting against Lang Khan. One of the other Arius Avum shuddered and looked away.
Lang Khan was too powerful. If we'd fought against him, he would have turned us or killed us.
Milton made a disgusted sound, and Ahir put an arm on his shoulder. You have to remember that they aren't fighters, Milton. We should be grateful they provided you with as much aid as they did. Milton pulled his shoulder away. Whatever. Just give me your chain, and I'll go round the Arius Avum up. Milton snatched the chain away from the cowering Arius Avum and jumped out of the window of the tower. The Arius Avum looked after Milton with discomfort.
I think he scares me more than Lang Khan did.
Ahir chuckled. He should. When he gets serious, he scares me too. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about him. He's on our side. Let's get out of this palace and go give him a hand. Ahir and the others made their way out of the palace and found many of the Arius Avum stuck together in a large ball, and the rest were sitting on the ground excitedly whispering. One of the Arius Avum pointed at their group as they exited the castle and excitedly said,
Look! They all came back out! That must mean that Lang Khan has been defeated! I'm certain that the king will throw a huge feast to celebrate the passing of the biggest threat that our world has ever known.
The Arius Avum started cheering and dancing, and Barbo had to shout for a long time before he managed to get their attention. Once they quieted down, Barbo said, I regret to inform you that the life of our king was claimed by his son, Lang Khan, before he fell. I call for a moment of silence to mourn the passing of our king and his son. The joy quickly disappeared from the faces of the Arius Avum, and many started to weep. Ahir whispered to Barbo, The king seems to have been very well loved. I wish I had gotten a chance to meet him. Barbo sniffled and wiped a tear from his eye. Yes, the king was loved by all of his subjects because he always put them first. He dedicated his life to making theirs better. He was the greatest of us, and he was my best friend. Sorrow filled Ahir's face, and he patted Barbo on the back. He must have been a great man to warrant such praise from you. I'm sorry about your loss, Barbo. Barbo nodded his head. He was, and he would be strong for our people right now, and keep them united. I have to try and do the same now in honor of his memory. Barbo cleared his throat and said, Thank you. We will have a ceremony to celebrate the life that he lived and to mourn his passing at a later time. But for now, we need to get these prisoners back to the palace. Someone call for an antivo, and the rest of you spread out and look for any in the city that may need aid. Trixie smiled.
I saw some other humans that had been captured by Lang Khan in the city earlier. I'm going to go and help them get to the place where the others are waiting for an antivo.
Milton nodded his head. I'll go with you. I'm sure more of Lang Khan's followers are guarding them. Trixie and Milton disappeared into the city, and the other Arius Avum spread out as well. Ahir smiled at Barbo. Looks like you would do a good job in the role of king. Perhaps you are the new leader your people are looking for? Barbo shook his head. Don't be silly, Ahir. I'm simply a royal advisor. I have no business trying to lead this people. Come and help me make sure that Milton didn't accidentally pull any Arius Avum from our side into this pile of Lang Khan's followers. 2 large fires burned on a grassy hill not far from the palace, and they were surrounded by weeping Arius Avum dressed in all black. Barbo stood next to Valentina and stared at the fire sorrowfully. Barbo turned and took her hand to try and comfort her, and he said, I believe the country will look to you for guidance now, my queen. Valentina wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her black robe, and she shook her head.
Our world has ever been led by a king, just as the father leads all. I would not presume to break tradition.
Barbo frowned at Valentina. But if not you, your majesty, then whom could it possibly be? Valentina sniffled and said,
I know you are concerned about our people, but can this not wait until Darduo and Lang Duo's memorial ceremony is finished?
Barbo bowed his head. Of course, your majesty. How inconsiderate of me. He backed away to where his wife was standing with their son, Ahir, Trixie, and Milton. Becca, Barbo's wife, smacked him.
I can't believe that you would bother the queen with such matters now of all times. She just lost her family. I know I wouldn't want anyone bothering me with anything, no matter how important, if I'd lost you and Cal.
Barbo rubbed the spot where his wife had hit him inside.
You are right, of course, my dear. I can't imagine what she's feeling right now. But you must admit that choosing who will lead us is very important.
Becca glared at Barbo, and Ahir put an arm on his shoulder. Settle down, Barbo. From what you've told me, every province has its own governors to manage them. They should be able to take care of things until a new king is chosen. Barbo nodded his head hesitantly. He was about to say something else when a deep Artis Avon voice started to sing.
As fires purify the land as a whole, so may these fires purify your soul. Enter into the Father's rest, passing from this life your test. Worry not for those who love you, it is our duty to see them through. Glory crowns the life of our kings, it is of them who we sing.
The Artis Avon bowed to Valentina and made his way back to the crowd weeping. That song was the sign that the service was over, and the weeping Artis Avon started to whisper to one another, asking who would lead them. Barbo made his way to the top of the hill and turned to face the crowd. The crowd grew silent and looked to Barbo. Barbo cleared his throat and said,
I have spoken with Valentina, and she has decided that she will step aside and let another take the place of leadership for our people. There is no protocol for how to proceed with this, so I will make a suggestion. I believe that our leader should be chosen by a council of the governors. I would like to make a few recommendations of individuals for the council to consider. By no means must I choose one of these. They are simply suggestions. I would recommend Mortan. He has done an excellent job of ruling over his province. Or perhaps Benthan. He has more experience with caring for the day-to-day needs of our agricultural society than any other governor gathered here today.
Benthan called out,
Thank you for the nomination, but to be honest, I can't think of anyone better suited to take on the role of our leader than you, Barbo. I have heard reports of how you organized our people after Langduel's defeat. May he find the Father's rest, and it has long been suspected that it was your wisdom that made Darduo such a good king.
Shouts of agreement echoed from the crowd, and Barbo stared at them in wonder.
Me? You can't be serious. I am but a simple advisor. If you value my wisdom that much, I will stay on in my role for whichever of you should take on the role.
Mortan smiled and said, You said that the Council of Governors should vote on it, so let's have a vote. All in favor of Barbo becoming the next king say aye. Every governor, and even many of the Artis Avon gathered in the crowd, shouted, Aye! Barbo shook his head and said,
Very well. According to the will of the council and the people, I will take on the name Barduo. Our first order of business must be deciding what to do with those who are still loyal to Langduo. I fear that they cannot be released for the harm they may cause to our society. The only two options we have would be to imprison them for life for something they can't control, or to use the Gladio Prodigat one last time to send them to their final rest.
Shocked cries erupted from the crowd.
You want to spread even more death to our people? Haven't we suffered enough?
The governors talked amongst themselves for several minutes, with angry shouts, and finally Benthan turned and said,
The council has discussed this, and we feel that the Gladio Prodigat should be used as a mercy to those still under Langduel's influence. But we feel that Torjot should not be afforded this mercy, since he was not under Langduel's control, and is directly responsible for everything that has befallen our people. He shall live out the rest of his days in the dungeons.
Barduo bowed his head.
I find the council's ruling to be wise, and it will be done as they say. Once this matter is settled, my first command will be for Law's Crit to melt down the Gladio Prodigat, and for its metal to be formed into medals for the heroes that rescued us in our hour of need. I would like to extend an invitation for our human allies to stay and live amongst us. They have more than earned the right to stay if they should wish it.
Barduo's decree was met with cheers, and Barduo turned to look and hear Trixie and Milton.
Would you like to stay with us, my friends? Perhaps Ahir could even be my advisor.
Ahir and Trixie put their heads together and started to whisper, but Milton shook his head. I'm afraid that I must decline your invitation. I would always be an outsider because of my appearance, no matter how good your intentions. Barbo nodded his head understandingly.
If that is what you choose, then I wish you the best of luck. I hope that you would stay long enough for the feast we are planning for you.
Milton nodded his head. Yes, I will stay for your feast, but I will depart as soon as it is finished. I'm sure much has happened since we left. Trixie nodded her head, and Ahir gave her a peck on the cheek. He turned to look at Barbo and said, Trixie and I would like to stay, but I'm afraid that I will have to pass on your offer to be your advisor. I'm just a simple street performer, and I don't think that I would do a very good job as an advisor. Besides, this new world is amazing, and Trixie and I intend to see it all.
Barbo smiled back at Ahir. A very wise decision, and I would like to be the first to greet you to your new home. Benthon, please select someone to deal with those loyal to Langkhan, and we will begin our feast.
Benthon looked at Barduo uneasily, and Ahir stepped forward. I'll do it.
Barbo shook his head. No, Ahir. You have already done more than enough for our people. I couldn't ask you to do this as well.
Ahir said more confidently. Your race is a peaceful one, Barbo. They shouldn't be forced to endure such a thing, and I already have the blood of Langduo's followers on my hands. A little more won't hurt. Besides, the sword chose me. Barbo nodded his head.
Very well. A servant will escort you to the dining hall once you are finished. As for the rest of us, let us go and eat.
The people cheered and all followed Barduo back to the palace. A servant led Ahir into the dining hall, and Ahir scanned the crowd for Trixie and Milton. Ahir's eyes scanned the tables full of vegetables and fruits of every color and shape imaginable piled onto tables next to tarts, pies, cakes, and stacks of fresh bread. Finally, he found Milton stuffing a tart into his mouth and made his way over to his table. Trixie looked up at Ahir and smiled at him.
Is it finished?
Ahir sighed and nodded his head. Yes, I just handed the sword over to Lazcrit for him to melt down. Now, what here is tasty? Trixie moved over to make room for Ahir, and he sat down between her and Milton.
Milton is enjoying those fruit and nut tarts, and this red piece of fruit tastes like a kiwi. You have to try the bread, though. I've never tasted such good bread before.
Ahir reached for a loaf of bread when he felt a delicate touch on his arm. He turned and saw a female Aryasevan with 2 goblets in her hands smiling suggestively at him.
I thought that perhaps the hero would be thirsty. Perhaps I could offer him a goblet of Trelizit, and you could tell me about some of your adventures?
Ahir swallowed hard and stammered, Trixie interrupted him and took the goblet from the female Aryasevan and glared at her.
The hero has only just sat down to eat. Perhaps you can hear about his adventures another time.
The Aryasevan returned Trixie's glare.
Very well. I will have to seek him out later to hear of his stories. Perhaps sometime when he is alone.
She moved off, walking with a very suggestive way. Ahir gave a sigh of relief. Thanks for the rescue, Trixie. I think we should start our tour of the world very soon. I don't think I want to spend any more time around the palace than need be if there are any other female Aryasevan like her around. Trixie sighed and leaned into Ahir's shoulder.
I can't wait to get started. I'm sure there is so much to see.
Milton sighed in disgust. I don't understand why you are getting all the attention. I was the one that saved the day. I bet if I didn't look like this, that she would have been here to talk to me. This is exactly why I'm not staying. Ahir took a bite from the bread in his hand and looked at Milton. What are you going to do when you get back home? Milton's skull turned into a grin. I've already talked it over with Lazcrit, but he is going to let me keep some of the artifacts that we used. I want to go back and use them to make a difference in our world, to keep fighting the bad guys. Ahir nodded his head. That sounds like a good idea. After everything we fought against, stopping normal humans should be a breeze for you. Ahir, Trixie, and Milton talked for hours while they enjoyed good food and drink, but finally, the time for Milton to go arrived. Lazcrit made his way through the dining hall with a box tucked under one of his arms and a bag with bulges sticking out of it over his shoulder. He dodged servers with trays of empty plates and bowls until he reached Barduo's side. He held the box out to Barduo and bowed.
The medals you requested, sire.
Ah, very good.
Barduo accepted the box from Lazcrit and eyed the bag suspiciously.
And what is in there?
Lazcrit touched the bag over his shoulder and smiled.
Milton asked if he could take some of my artifacts back with him, and I selected a few that he may find useful.
Barduo raised an eyebrow.
Useful? Whatever for?
Lazcrit shrugged.
He said something about being able to use them to make a difference in his world. I'm just happy that someone will finally be using my masterpieces.
Barduo nodded his head.
Yes, I have greatly come to regret that Barduo didn't find more of a use for your artifacts. After my time with the humans, I certainly have come to appreciate them more.
Barduo looked down at his half-filled plate of food and pushed it aside.
Milton must begin anxious to return to his world. I suppose I shouldn't put this off any longer.
Barduo rose to his feet and said in a loud voice,
I believe it is time to say farewell to Milton. Any who wish to come and say their thanks and goodbyes may join us. Otherwise, continue your feasting.
Barduo's family and Las Crit followed Barduo through the dining hall toward the throne room. Ahir, Trixie, and Milton joined them once they had made it halfway across the hall, and before they had made it to the doors, a handful of others joined them. Barduo made his way to the raised section of the floor that his throne rested upon, and he turned to look out at those gathered before him. He smiled at his family, Bektina and Kalkan, and he cleared his throat.
I want to thank you all for coming here to say thank you to these 3 humans who have sacrificed so much to save us. Their world is so different from ours, filled with violence and poverty, corruption and despair, and at a glance they appear to be little more than savages. I have lived among them, and I have learned firsthand that there is so much more to humans than what meets the eye. They are a courageous race, and there is much kindness in those that I encountered.
Syllabo interrupted Barduo. I thought we were here to say thank you for their service. At the rate you're going, they'll be dead of old age before you get to it. Barduo glared at Syllabo and shook his head.
Yes, very well.
He pulled the lid off of the box containing the medals and pulled them out.
These medals were formed for the Gladio Prodigat, the only weapon ever created that could harm our people. May they serve as a reminder of the courageous acts of selflessness performed by these heroes. Friends, please step forward and receive your medals.
Milton approached Barduo, and Ahir and Trixie formed a line behind him. Barduo put a medal around Milton's neck and smiled at him.
Thank you for your service to our people. You and your deeds shall ever be remembered. I only regret that Torjot kept you from working with us.
Milton smiled and moved over to make room for Ahir. Barduo looped the medal around Ahir's neck.
Thank you for your service. You and your deeds shall ever be remembered. You taught me much about honor and sacrifice during my time with you. Ever will you be welcomed in my palace.
Ahir bowed his head and made room for Trixie to step forward. Barduo placed the medal around her neck and smiled at her.
Thank you for your service. You and your deeds shall ever be remembered. You taught me great lessons in kindness and selflessness when you allowed Ahir and I to stay with you when our home burned down. My home shall ever be open to you should you find need for it.
Las Crit stepped forward and handed Milton a sack of artifacts he had brought with him.
I picked out 4 for you that you should find useful in your quest. I hope they help to keep you safe for many years to come.
Milton bowed his head. Thank you. I will make sure that they are put to good use. Milton turned to face Ahir and Trixie. I guess this is it. Are you sure you want to stay? I could use some help protecting the city, and I'm sure Las Crit could find more artifacts for you. Ahir shook his head. This world has too many wonders to see to leave it behind so easily. Besides, I was only ever a homeless street performer in that world. There really isn't anything for me to go back to. Trixie nodded her head.
Ahir's right. I didn't have anyone back home that will miss me too much. Besides, wherever Ahir goes, that's where I'll be too.
Milton looked down at the floor and blinked back tears from his good eye. This is goodbye, then. I guess I'll never see either of you again once I close that portal. Barduo interrupted.
That's not necessarily true. Our scholars are going to be looking into Lancon's journals from when he was first discovering magic. We hope that we have only temporarily lost access to magic, and that it can be found once more.
Milton shook his head. By the time they figure it out, I'll probably be dead. Time moves a lot faster on my side of the portal. Milton looked at Ahir and Trixie. I wish both of you lots of happiness, and I regret allowing Torjot to turn me against you. Milton put the sack over his shoulder and moved toward the portal. Ahir put a hand on Milton's shoulder, and Milton turned around. Ahir gave Milton a hug and said, You were there to save me when I needed you to. That is all that matters. Milton returned the hug. Just returning the favor. I seem to remember you saving my life a few times as well. Milton broke away and stepped through the portal, and a short time later the portal closed in a shimmer of blue. Barduo looked away from the portal and wiped tears away from his eyes.
What of you two? When will you be leaving to do your exploring?
Ahir shrugged. Seems to me there's plenty to explore in the city. Trixie crossed her arms and stepped on Ahir's foot. Ahir cleared his throat and continued. Which is why we'll be returning to see it soon. I'm afraid that we're going to start our journey soon, perhaps as soon as tomorrow. A satisfied smile filled Trixie's face. Trixie's eyes lit up in surprise.
Oh, that reminds me.
She reached into one of the pouches on her silver robe and pulled out a packet of seeds.
I know how much you enjoy apples, and that there weren't any in your world, so I brought you some seeds so you can grow your own trees. I hope that they'll grow here.
Barduo's eyes lit up with excitement.
Oh, what a marvelous gift! I'm certain that the royal gardeners will be able to make them grow, and I'll be able to share the joy of apples with everyone. Thank you!
Barduo cleared his throat.
I'm afraid I can't allow the two of you to leave without making sure you have a proper name. No, Ahir and Trixie certainly won't do. What is it that the two of you wish to do here, other than explore?
Ahir smiled and pulled out some juggling balls. I'm an entertainer, that's what I do best. I'm hoping to bring joy to everyone I meet with my skills. I'm going to teach Trixie how to as well. Barduo frowned.
You will be the first entertainers of your kind in our world. There isn't a word for what you do. Perhaps we could turn your name into the word for it. Yes, from this day forward, you shall be known as Ahir Boheta and Trixie Boheta. How does that sound?
Trixie got a dreamy look in her eyes.
That sounds perfect. Don't you think so, Ahir?
Ahir returned her smile. Yes, it does. Ahir Bohater and Trixie Bohater together, exploring the world and bringing smiles to all. Milton stepped into the hospital and saw Daniel sitting in a chair in front of the door, flipping through a magazine full of books. Milton cleared his throat and Daniel jumped and fell out of his chair. A smile crossed his face when he saw Milton.
Milton, you're back! Where are the others?
Milton hung his head. I have some sad news, but I don't want to share it until I have a chance to tell Detective Miguel. Can you take me to him? Daniel's smile faded away and he looked at the floor.
Yeah, that won't be a problem. You should probably close that portal before we leave, though.
Milton stared at the portal and he hesitated. If he did this, then it was over. He would never see Ahir and Trixie again. He sighed and reached into the bag that was slung over his shoulder and pulled out his bow. He thrust it into the portal and the portal winked shut around it. He tucked the bow back into the bag and started for the door. Let's go. Milton followed Daniel into Detective Miguel's office, and he saw 3 chairs set up across from Detective Miguel, one of them filled by Alicia. Detective Miguel gestured toward one of the chairs. Milton, it is good to see you again. Officer Daniel said that there was something you want to speak of with me? Something to do with Ahir and Trixie. Did something happen to them? Milton sat down and rested his bag on his lap. I wanted to talk to you for a few reasons. First, I wanted to let you know that you won't have to worry about any more Arius Avum attacks. Lane Khan and his followers have been taken care of, and in the process of doing so, magic has been lost. Alicia glared at Milton.
You're stalling! Where are Trixie and Ahir?
Milton took a deep breath. Ahir and Trixie decided to stay in the Arius Avum world instead of returning. We won't ever see them again. Daniel let out a sigh of relief.
Oh, is that all? I was afraid that something terrible had happened to them.
Milton smirked. No, they're fine. There was one other thing I wanted to talk with you about. The Arius Avum allowed me to bring some of their artifacts back with me, and I wanted to get your permission to continue using them to help you fight crime. Detective Miguel leaned forward. That would depend on what these artifacts of yours can do. Milton pulled the bag on his lap open and pulled his bow out. I believe you are familiar with what my bow is capable of. He set the bow down on the top of the desk and pulled out a pair of gauntlets. These will enable anyone wearing them to fly. Daniel whistled and looked at the gauntlets appreciatively.
I sure wouldn't mind trying those out.
Milton shrugged. Maybe I'll let you wear them sometime then. Now this, Milton pulled a helmet out of the bag. This will let anyone wearing it run super fast. I haven't had a chance to try it out yet, but Trixie seemed to enjoy using it. Detective Miguel nodded his head. Those all seem safe enough, as long as they don't end up in the wrong person's hands. Is that all that you have brought? Milton shook his head. No, there's one more. He pulled a chain out of the bag and set it on the desk. Anyone I touch with this chain will be bound in invisible restraints until I free them. Detective Miguel stared at the artifacts for a moment and nodded his head. I will allow you to aid us with these artifacts under one condition. You will be working with us, so you will keep us informed of any and all cases that you are working on. Milton held out his hand. That seems fair. I agree to your terms. Detective Miguel shook Milton's hand and Daniel piped up.
One more condition. I get to try flying with the gauntlets.
Milton chuckled. Sure, that won't be a problem. Last Crit dragged Cal Khan into the throne room. Cal Khan shouting out protests and trying to wiggle out of Last Crit's grasp, but it was no use. Last Crit had a grip like a vice after his long hours at the anvil. Barduo sat up and stared at the scene with curiosity.
What is the meaning of this disturbance?
Last Crit glared at Cal Khan.
I found this little troublemaker played inside of my vault.
Barduo sighed and shook his head.
Is that all? Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Bettina and I will have a word with the boy.
Last Crit shook his head.
It isn't as simple as all that, I'm afraid. He was playing with the picture frame.
Barduo gasped.
Not the one that opens portals between dimensions.
Last Crit sighed and nodded his head.
The very one. The little scamp sent all of my artifacts through the portal. Who knows how much trouble he may have caused?
Barduel's eyes went wide in shock.
It can't be. After all the aid that the humans gave us, my son goes and returns the favor by filling the world with chaos.